I think what I'm pleased about in these results, where we grew the top line 4.5, expanded margins, and had very strong cash flow, is the consistency across the world and also across categories and brands. Scotch whisky was up 5%, and Johnnie Walker up 6%. Brands like Buchanan 16%. But the U.S. business is coming back. We grew U.S. spirits 3.4%. Europe was really strong, 5% growth in Europe, and brands like Bailey's and Captain Morgan doing really well. Guinness is in strong health. So this is more consistent than we've done in quite a few years.
So one of the really striking things in the results is that China was up 25%.
It's early days, but I really sense China is at the early stage of the development of a very exciting high-end Scotch whisky renaissance. And brands like Johnnie Walker Blue Label, single malts, we're opening whiskey boutiques in towns where people are really getting interested in whiskey and all the heritage and quality and stories behind it. So we've had a good year on Scotch. We're growing market share there. And I think if I look at the next 10 years, I think Scotch can be very exciting in China as well.
Now, what about Britain's impending exit from the EU? You were very clear before the referendum you wanted the UK to remain in the EU. Now, you've made it clear that you don't see WTO tariffs as being necessarily a problem in some parts of the world. But what about economies like Colombia and Peru and South Africa, where the EU has free trade deals with those economies? Are you going to face higher tariffs on some of your products?
Well, we're working with the government closely on this. So we're taking Brexit in our stride. And in those markets where indeed Scotch whisky benefits from some of the EU FTA agreements, like a Colombia or indeed a Korea, we're working with the government to ensure that the UK doesn't go backwards when we pull out of the EU. And I'm fairly confident we would, because I would hope that those markets will not want to penalize the UK, because there's two-way trade there. But these are all the areas in which Scotch whisky is such a successful export industry for the UK. It's 25% of the food and drink business. It's £4 billion, supports 40,000 people in Scotland. It's a growth industry. I mean, I see a lot of opportunity to keep Scotch growing fast. And both the UK and the Scottish governments are very aligned in ensuring that we get the support. So I would hope in the case of those countries, we would get trading arrangements as favourable as we have today.
And the Scottish Government's latest appeal as it tries to drive through minimum pricing is about to come to court again. Sensational results today, very, very strong profits. A lot of people who look at the minimum pricing debate in Scotland will probably say, isn't it slightly immoral to be opposing minimal pricing?
Our approach is to reduce alcohol harm in society. We have a huge commitment to it. It's core to what we do. If you look at the trends in the UK over the last 10, 12 years, you've had reduction in binge drinking, harmful drinking, to the tune of 20% taking place. In Scotland, in the last decade, alcohol-related deaths have dropped by about 30%. Now, there's always more to do. And our approach on reducing alcohol harm is it needs to be targeted. We need to target populations where the problem is. You need solutions that work. And we're doing a lot of programs around the world. We measure their effectiveness. And so our approach on this is there are better ways. And we want to work closely with government, with the medical community, with stakeholders to reduce alcohol harm. And it's something I think we can make a real difference on.